Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. No new housekeeping for this video other than, again, if you haven't given questions to the Q&A already, you should. Pretty based. It'd be pretty cool if you did. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First news story, update from Norway. Norway elections happened pretty much exactly how you expected them to happen. Støre won very easily, 53 seats. The Progress Party got number 2 spot with 47 seats. Conservatives got 24 seats. The three parties tied, the Socialist Left, Center, and Red parties, all tied with 9 seats, which is good for some, bad for others. The Red Party gained 1 seat, Socialist Left lost 4 seats, and the Center Party lost 19 seats. Liberals lost 5 seats, they have 3 seats now. Christian Democrats got 7 seats by gaining 4, and the Green Party got 8 seats, gaining 5. The Patient Focus Party seemed to have lost their only seat. Not necessarily that surprising. Although one thing that I have to mention, just because this is just a weird thing that happened, apparently one person tried to get into a fucking argument with me because they didn't. This is actually kind of depressing that I'm gonna say this. Oh, I name drop. I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care. I'm in my, like, you guys fucked up. I'm in my I don't give a fuck phase. So it's like, really shouldn't be starting shit with me now. But somebody commented on my last video trying to debunk me, and this is the problem I have with people debunking me. I love getting debunked. I love being proven wrong, but the problem is they just don't prove me wrong at any point. I keep getting proven right always. Like, literally, this one person commented on my video on the Norway election, like, the Red Party isn't communist, and it's like, they are? Like, they are? What do you mean? Page 20 of their manifesto literally says that they explicitly say they call for, quote, the goal of a society without oppression, in harmony in the limits of nature. It will be possible to see the outlines of a classless society, a world where all people are equal value. Explicitly, like, they literally explicitly said, like they explicitly name drop, give according to ability, take according to need. That is what Karl Marx called communism. Like, very explicitly say that, and it's like, the Progress Party is not fascist. The Progress Party opposes racism. No, they don't. The Progress Party supports free speech, which is why the leader of the party literally, like, got a couple of Palestinian protesters arrested, and then to the point where they were trying to, like, dunk him, like, yeah, you're a stupid American. Stupid. Why don't you, Donald Trump's the real fascist. It's like, but her and Trump have basically identical politics, so it's like, one can't be fascist and the other can't be they have borderline identical politics, so it's like, it's a stupid argument. But anyways, that's beside the point. Apparently, also good news, good things are going to happen, because apparently, at least in paper, it seems that the left-wing parties have brains. Labor, the Socialist Left, Red Party, and, like, the Greens, and the other, and I guess, yeah, the Center Party, like, they get to be part of the gang too, because they just need that majority. But they've all basically said, like, they basically all at least partially agreed they will form a coalition. They're not going to form a formal coalition, but it's going to be like the other parties are going to form, like, a confidence and supply coalition with them. Like, basically, it's not going to be anything formal. They're just going to all start voting together on a lot of policies. So it's like, I mean, at least the fascists lose. Who cares? Anyways, speaking of, actually, I can't say that because that's a terrible transition. This is just a funny, stupid thing that happened. So, Albania has just announced that they're forming a new cabinet. I guess they just had an election. I don't remember if they had an election recently or whatever. But the Prime Minister, Edi Rama, has introduced a new member of the cabinet that is very interesting. An artificial intelligence known as Diela. Now, apparently this specific AI was originally used as basically like a pencil pusher AI assistant that, like, people who needed to get official documents would go to her, and then they'd be like, yo, can I get some documents? And she'd be like, yes, you may, and, like, send them to the places that need documents. But apparently they're going to use this AI to root out corruption. That seems to be the plan. So literally, some people are pointing out that this is kind of like just a purely symbolic gesture. It's more like literally just using a virtual assistant to do things that the ministers would do. But it's like, doesn't this sound like it's starting to get to be the point where it's literally like, okay, the robots are actually taking over now. Like, a robot's now in the government position. Okay. It's just a thing, whatever. I just thought it was a funny story. Just to add a little funny story before we get into this next one, which is depressing. The global Sumud Flotilla got into a very interesting thing, because they recently just set sail to try and break the siege of Gaza, and shock of all shocks, people are not necessarily happy about it. Well, some people are happy. A majority of normal people are happy about it, but people in charge are, of course, very much not happy about it, because they're trying to actually do good things, feed children and make sure that they don't get their brains blown out. And then Itamar Ben-Gvir announced that they will actually be treating this group as officially they basically officially said that they're going to actually treat these guys as terrorists now. That's basically what they actually said. And you got your typical people making, very strange comments. There was this one, account that posted a picture of someone on one of the Freedom Flotillas. Because this one's, not just one boat. It's like a fleet of boats. And there was one girl who was on this boat who... I don't know her name. If I knew her name, I'd say her name. But I don't know her name. But she is an individual who is, let's just say she's the typical... image that a person let's just say it. She's really hot. That's basically what it is. She's a hot, attractive woman, and she posted a video of her on the flotilla doing a dance or something, doing a dance or whatever. And basically every single reply and quote tweet about that video was basically everyone saying when she gets to the Middle East, you know what's gonna happen to her. And it's because that's one of the big things that a lot of these people do. They just have this very innate racist view of the Middle East and Muslims in general and stuff. One big example that they always say is when these Westerners will get to these backwater third world countries, things are gonna start being bad. But it's not. Greta Thunberg went to Tunisia, and then everybody there was happy to see her and was greeting her happily. They gave her hand knitted hats because her frog hat got stolen by Israel. It's the same thing that happened with Jimmy Carter all the way back in the 2000s, where it's Jimmy Carter was literally told by the Israeli ministers, because he said I want to visit Gaza, and then they said, oh, sorry sir, we can't take you there. And he's why not? And they said, well, because if we take you there, there's a good chance you're going to die there. They're gonna these they basically were implying all these rabid animals are going to kill you once they see you. But then when he got there, every single Palestinian he met was so fucking nice to him. But this recent flotilla got attacked by drones, and then after they got attacked by drones, basically what happened was explosions were found on the thing, and members of the Freedom Flotilla were hey, we heard drones fly past us, and then bombs were attacked, we got attacked, and then Tunisia, where they were at the time, tried to say, no, you see, what must have happened is that you guys must have, smoked, and, you let one of the ashes fall, and then it's oh, here's, actual video footage of we were here. And it's huh, that's interesting. I don't smoke personally, but I've been around a lot of people who do smoke. Typically, they don't make the sound of a drone and a bomb dropping, Maybe cigarettes from around the world. Maybe you guys have different sounding cigarettes. But there's really not much else for me to say on this subject other than break the siege and Sumud lan Nahal. But anyways, let us move on to an American news story. It's about the NDAA, which apparently there was a small brief attempt to actually do something, but their brief attempt to do something was fucking stupid. By they, I mean Democrats. And okay, so the Senate basically pushed for the last elements of the NDAA before it was sent off to the House to be voted on. And what ended up happening is that Chuck Schumer, he had a brilliant idea to try and do something about the NDAA. The brilliant idea was that he wanted to include a provision in the NDAA that would force the Jeffrey Epstein files to be released. Shock of all shocks, the Republicans rejected that offer, and the NDAA was sent to the House of Representatives anyways. To which it's literally just the fact that it's just like, that was your fucking plan. Like, this is the thing. It wasn't like, it's just so weird. I don't get what the plan, I don't even get what the fucking plan was. It's like, because I saw like some people like tweeting about it, and it was like, oh wow, Chuck Schumer has this brilliant plan for the Republican Party on the Epstein files list. It's like, okay, what's the plan? And I found out this was the plan. It's like, wait, what? Your plan was, yeah, we'll release the pedophile list, but only if Israel also gets $60 million. And it's like, yeah, and by the way, yeah, that is an actual part of the NDAA. That's like, I didn't make up that number. I specifically looked in the NDAA and specifically looked up Israel to see specifically how much money they'd get. And they get $60 million. Yeah, and also, again, bill passed from the House at least. It'll probably pass the Senate too. 15 Democrats voted for it. Let's see who they are. Henry Cuellar, fuck you. David Davis, fuck you. Laura Gillen, fuck you. She's the same one who was crying about Mamdani 2 minutes ago. Jared Golden, fuck you. Vicente Gonzalez, fuck you. Josh Gothmeier, especially fuck you. Adam Gray, fuck you. Stephen Horsford, fuck you. Mars Captor, fuck you. Susie Lee, fuck you. April McLean Delaney, fuck you. Kristen McDonald Rivet, fuck you. Frank Mervan, fuck you. Marie Perez, fuck you. What's her name? Her last name is Sykes. I don't remember her first name. Amelia? I think it's Amelia. Fuck you. Eugene, was it Eugene Vidman? Not Eugene Vidman. Was it him? Anyways, whoever the Vidman is in Virginia, fuck you. And George Whitesides, fuck you. You all are losers, and I don't understand how you guys are even remotely considered relevant to the Democratic Party. Not much else for me to say, but let's move on to the next story. YouTuber Psy. I really did not want to talk about this news story. I really did not want to do this. I did not remotely want to do this. And it was because of the slightest bit of empathy I can have for this person and the people around him that I did not want to talk about the story. Because, hot take. Murder is cringe. That's a pretty bold hot take. And, generally, when people get murdered, I don't like that, It's why I'm in favor of a lot of the politics that I'm in favor of. They either prevent people from dying. Like, basically all my politics are preventing people from dying. No more wars equals no more dying. Universal health care equals no more dying. Giving people money for food or giving them just food directly equals no more dying. Like, hot take, these are, ending climate change means no more massive dying. Like, my policies are generally on the side, I'm in favor of gun control, situation that probably could have prevented this situation. My politics are broadly identified as just, I don't like people dying. Again, it's a pretty hot take if you ask me. And in any other situation of the world, like, I even remember, like, prior to, like, the situation of politics nowadays, there were other political pundits and figures that would die, and I would just have no reason to talk about them. Because it's just, like, they were in their sphere, they did their thing, they were removed from anything of my life. The people in their audiences cried and whined about it and, like, expressed support for them, and whatever. And we could just move past it. But every day since it happened, everybody has been forcing me to fucking talk about it. Particularly through a lot of the people's responses to what happened. For those who just somehow lived under a rock or haven't seen the little like chapter words that pop up on the bottom of the screen sometimes, Charlie Kirk got fucking assassinated. In the middle of one of his Change Your Mind segments, he was just debating a college kid, as all these right-wing people do, and he got fucking shot in the neck, and it, like, seeing that footage is insane. Like, the fact that we live in an era where, like, footage of a prominent individual's assassination is just there is just insane. It was super up close, and it was insane. And in the typical fashion that right-wing figures and pundits and individuals have been doing for every single mass shooting ever, they wanted to somehow blame this on the left in any sort of capacity. Blaming this on BLM, Antifa, trans people, Democrats, whatever. They just wanted to immediately blame someone else. They didn't wait for the investigation to happen. They didn't wait for a suspect to be in custody. They immediately just started going around and blaming all these minority groups that have no societal anything that gives them the ability to be able to be in that position at all. Like, one of the press conferences of the Republican governor of Utah, the state where it happened, literally had him just saying, "We pray this is an immigrant." Because, like, why are you praying for this to be a specific person? Like, why? Why are you, like, praying for the person who committed this atrocity to be a specific individual? Like, you could have phrased that in any other way. You could have said, like, we are praying that we will find this person, figure out their motivations, and figure out why this happened. But no, he was just like, we are praying that this is an immigrant. And he made us be like, because if it's one of us, it's so tragic. It's like, what do you fucking mean one of us? Like they're basically admitting, like, they didn't want it to be a white person. They were hoping that it wasn't a white person so that they could blame minority groups. And you can't say that that's not what happened, because that is literally what happened. Without any evidence, every single person in the right-wing sphere blamed it on trans people, blamed it on black people, blamed it on every single other minority group. And that was the first major problem. Like, again, the first major problem was the fact that they immediately rushed to blame, didn't rush to find any solution to the problem, rushed to blame. And one of the elements that allowed them to feel some sort of vindication in the blame was seeing a lot of people either just openly stated that they don't care about what happened, or not necessarily hiding the fact that they weren't necessarily that sad that it happened, which led to a lot of people to try and vindicate Charlie Kirk in any sort of capability. They've shifted a lot on, like, what their plan and their strategy is to try and make what happened to Charlie Kirk, like, seem like such more tragic. Like, oh, he was just rushing. He was just trying to have civil conversations with people. He was like, he may have had a difference in opinion and whatever, but, like, you can't get that mad. Or, oh, and they even go so far as to say, like, oh, but he's a father. He's a father. You can't just, he's a father. Meanwhile, on the same breath, basically sneering at every single person who is perceived of a minority group that might have been, like, this is the fucking dumbest thing that I've always seen. Like one of the big things is, like, they get mad that the left, like, some people on the left just obviously cheerled the fact that it happened. Like, a lot of them did. Like, to pretend that nobody cheerled that what happened is just ludicrous. But they were like, how dare you? How dare you not be mourning of Charlie Kirk? How dare you? Meanwhile, literally every single one of them openly advocates for murder. Literally, every single one. I'm not kidding. I'm not even remotely fucking kidding. All of the people who were crying that Charlie Kirk was killed, all of them, and were crying anybody who was, like, even remotely insinuating, making fun of Charlie Kirk, ever insinuating, like, criticizing Charlie Kirk, anything, they flat out openly advocate for murder. Not kidding. Ted Nugent was like, how dare you guys? And then they found out, like, oh yeah, here's the time where you literally threatened to murder Obama and Hillary Clinton. The fucking head of the New Hampshire Libertarian Party felt like the need to get involved in this. And then people were like, dude, your account literally advocated for the murder of Kamala Harris. Like, and again, he's not getting a punishment. Ted Nugent didn't get a punishment for what he said. But meanwhile, now the State Department is saying, like, any immigrant that wants to mock Charlie Kirk or, like, criticize Charlie Kirk, we are going to review your legal status and possibly deport you. It's like, why? That is literally their First Amendment right. That's their First Amendment right. Even if they did want to fucking, like, make fun of Charlie Kirk, it's like, you could call them dicks or whatever, but that's their First Amendment right. That's their literal First Amendment right. You guys use your First Amendment right to advocate for the murder of trans people. You use your First Amendment right to make fun of the death. And this is another thing. Like, it's like, this is why it's infuriating to me. It's like fucking libs of TikTok felt the need to make a statement. And it's like, bitch, you call bomb threats to schools. That is your job. Your job is to go on Twitter and then make bomb threats to children. That is what you do for a living. And then you're going to sit here and be like, why are these people making fun of Charlie Kirk? And it gets even more infuriating because, like, people are even going so far as to, like, you can't just call out Charlie Kirk for what he was. Like, a new trend that has been going on that I originally thought was, like, not even remotely like that not even remotely that problematic to begin with, but then it's like, okay, now it's actually immensely more problematic, is now one of the big things that they're trying to rebrand Charlie Kirk as a lot of things. Like, one, it's like, he was a civil rights leader. These are all the dumb things they've said. Like, they said, like, he just wanted spirited debate and discussion, and he was a civil rights leader. Like, literally, Glenn Beck literally called him a fucking civil rights leader. He is not a civil rights leader. He advocated for civil rights to be taken away from people. He's literally the exact opposite of a civil rights leader. And it's like, yeah, he was so fucking, like, massive and powerful for, like, fucking getting into debates with college kids. This man is a thought leader of the generation. And it's like, really? This is the person you're, like, bending the knee and sucking off and, like, making your fucking martyr? Like, that's fucking pathetic that you're, like, the person we are. Like, a lot of people literally went so far as to say, like, it is time for war. It's civil war time. It's like, Charlie Kirk being the thing that starts a civil war would be fucking insane. The guy who, again, his whole spiel, his whole shtick, like most of these fucking right-wing losers, is debating, like, college kids. These are people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and their jobs are to stand in front of a person who literally just turned 18 like 2 minutes ago and be like, you guys don't understand the complexities of politics. It's like, yeah, no shit, they don't fucking understand the complexities of politics. They fucking just turned 18. It's why you guys dodge debates all the time with actual literal intellectuals. Although, I guess, to give some slight credit to Charlie Kirk, he was more open to actually debating actual intellectuals. He debated Hassan Piker a while ago. I think he debated Kyle Kulinski, and he was going to debate Hassan Piker again, like, in a couple of weeks, but clearly that debate got canceled. And one of the things that has been going on is a lot of people have been trying to compare him to George Floyd. Not necessarily, like, they're trying to be like, oh, the news media is so nice to George Floyd, but not nice about Charlie Kirk. It's like, that's not true. The news media has been very courteous about Charlie Kirk. They've literally covered his fucking news story. It's a prominent fucking news story. Yes, they covered it. But yes, the coverage of George Floyd is different than the coverage of fucking Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk was murdered by, I guess I should just mention it, like, Charlie Kirk was murdered by some random person. George Floyd was murdered by an employee of the government. That is literally what happened. Again, massive difference in the two situations. And that's another big criticism a lot of people have levied about, like, Charlie Kirk and a lot of these other right-wing figures. It's like, a lot of you guys shat on George Floyd. It's like, you guys say, like, oh, let Charlie Kirk rest in peace. Like, you didn't let George Floyd rest in peace. Like, well, yeah, because George Floyd is, like, a fucking degenerate. It's like, see, that's the point. You guys don't care. That's the point. You guys don't fucking care. Like, in the same vein, they're like, oh, we're so Charlie Kirk got murdered, so sad. It's like, the same day Charlie Kirk got murdered, 72 people in Gaza were murdered by the Israeli government on the behest of the United States. Where was the decrying on that? If murder was your thing that you opposed, where's the denouncement of that? Where is it? But that's different. That's one of those over there lands with all those people. It's like, yeah, the people that Charlie Kirk was claiming were trying to take over the United States. And that's another big problem. It's like, I've tried to talk about something before. You can tell I'm a little bit, like, rambling on this because I don't have a... But Charlie Kirk, like, one of the big things that have been going on is that a lot of these conservatives get mad that news media is covering Charlie Kirk objectively. Like, they're either quoting things Charlie Kirk has said, or they are just explicitly just, like, even, like, ignoring, like, quoting him directly. They are just trying to say who he is. And one of the big things that happened is, like, they get, like, fucking pissed about it. It's like, they said, like, there was, like, a news media that's, like, he was a controversial right-wing pundit. And it's like, how dare they say that? It's like, he is, though. He is a controversial right-wing pundit. He has said many controversial statements in his political career. Because that's, again, the shtick that right-wing people do. It's like, I say the things that they don't want us to say. Meanwhile, he holds literally all the same positions of the rich, powerful elite, and literally holds no feet to the fire in any sort of actual substantive sense. Again, this dude is, like, so much of a big figure that you guys need to rally behind. Like, dude, he has said controversial statements that have made a lot of people mad, and now you're, like, confused that these same people are now not really concerned about Charlie Kirk. And it's just hitting me that I said something that I was leading into something a little bit ago, but I didn't get to it. And it's that some people are trying to rebrand Charlie Kirk as a moderate, which at one point that would have been true. Charlie Kirk was, to an extent, considered a quote-unquote moderate figure among right-wing politics. In the immediate post-2016 era, there were three branches of conservative thought, seemingly in the sphere. There was the Ben Shapiro's, there was the Nick Fuentes, and then there was Charlie Kirk, who was technically in the middle of those ones. But Charlie Kirk has shifted TPUSA to be a bit more explicitly right-wing, to the point where literally he almost, not to necessarily say he himself was borderline Nick Fuentes, but there were some sentiments that really just seemed like, wait, hold on, what? Like, it just seemed a little weird. Charlie Kirk hired a Nazi to work for TPUSA, and then near the end of his career, he was literally openly advocating for saying that the Great Replacement theory was true. In the same vein, he also said that black women's brains were inferior. He also said a lot of very controversial things. Like, that is a true statement about Charlie Kirk. That's not them, smearing him. That's them acknowledging who he literally was. He was a controversial figure who said controversial statements. That is a fact about Charlie Kirk. But you can't say anything mean about Charlie Kirk. He was a dad. He was a father. Wow. Charlie Kirk came in a woman and then it became a human being. Wow. That's so impressive. That means we can no longer criticize. We can't talk about anything that he has ever said or done ever. Such as the time where he said that if his 10-year-old daughter was raped, he would force her to have a baby. Claiming that Charlie Kirk is a moderate voice when it was initially, to me, because I think the first person who said that was Shoe-on-Head. And to me, it was her saying, the rest of the right is just so far right. But apparently a lot of people are literally jumping on that trend to now just try to say, yes, he is just a moderate. It's no, that's not true. Calling him a moderate is literally just calling the rest of the right fascists. That's what you're doing. That's basically what you're doing if you're saying that Charlie Kirk is the moderate. And one of the other things that they have done to try and rebrand his image is to even go so far as to just say a blatant thing that was this was known. This is the thing that's confusing me. It's like this. They're saying this as this is some sort of big revelation, or as if this absolves him at any point. But one of the big things that a lot of people try to do is say well, but Charlie Kirk was putting on a character. They're basically saying he was putting on a character. The Charlie Kirk persona in his videos is a character, is a shtick. It's just him, I guess it's supposed to be hyper, they're basically saying it's just a character. We're focusing on the man. It's okay, first of all, so you're admitting that Charlie Kirk didn't believe a single fucking thing he said? And also, again, this was known, Blair White, openly called out the fact that many conservative figures in back rooms just openly say they don't believe any of the shit they say, but they just say it to get clicks. And many people, point out that was probably a dig at Charlie Kirk. Because again, remember, at one point, Charlie Kirk was literally a more moderate right-wing voice. He was just more of a traditional conservative, but then he just, as the quote-unquote traditional conservative movement has drifted so far to the right, he just drifted with them. They've even gone so far as to try and canonize him by literally comparing him to, Abe Lincoln, JFK, Martin Luther King Jr., and Jesus Christ. First of all, fucking cult mentality. But it's also fucking hilarious that, the right wing doesn't have their own figures that they can use to canonize him. They can't use their own actual figures, their own actual people in their own movement to canonize him. They have to borrow people from the left. They have to borrow a guy who was Karl Marx's pen pal, a president who was denounced by many as a too soft on communist guy, a person who literally the last thing they did before dying was fighting capitalism, and a guy who said that rich people are not getting into heaven. These are the people that you're canonizing. Meanwhile, they again demonize the fact that all these other people who are being targeted by Charlie Kirk are not being silent about the fact that they didn't like him. Which is it's strange. It's no. Being dead doesn't excuse you from being criticized. That's not how it works. They don't have to magically like him now that he's dead. And they don't have to magically pretend that they liked him now that he's dead either. The best you guys could have afforded was them being quiet. That's the best you guys could have gotten, especially considering how incendiary Charlie Kirk was to them. And remember, Charlie Kirk was the one who said that empathy is bad. So don't be shocked when you and all of the other people in your crowd were saying empathy is this bad thing, and all of a sudden these guys aren't showing empathy to you. Now, be that as it may, I actually did want to show empathy to Charlie Kirk and his family. I said at the beginning of the segment, I didn't want to talk about Charlie Kirk's assassination. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about, like, the fact that I didn't like him. I didn't want to talk about the fact that I really didn't like him. Like, I didn't want to talk about that. I just wanted to move on and, like, just, like, at the best, again, be quiet about it. But then, again, the right wing's reaction to this assassination is what made me just really, 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 like, I can't stay silent. Because, again, one, the fact that they immediately turned to start demonizing minority groups, again, trans people, black people again, when it turns out the person who killed him was, like, this boring white guy. And, again, they're still trying to blame left-wingers in some capacity because this white guy went to college. Like, he went to college. That means he was, like, groomed by the woke liberals. It's like, no. He went to fucking college in Utah. What do you mean? Nor the fact that they're neglecting to mention the fact that his family was apparently like a very hard right family. He dressed up as Donald Trump. He dressed up as being carried by Donald Trump at one point for Halloween. And then he also dressed up in a apparently Pepe the Frog inspired costume. And it's like, I wonder what his political leanings were. And even at the point where Nick Fuentes is even at the point where it's like, uh-oh. Like even Nick Fuentes had to explicitly denounce like people in his fan base that are like groypers and like doing bad things because if another person is insinuated, is like it put it in explicit line with like Nick Fuentes being targeted in this assassination attempt, is like yeah. And again, this is after these same groups of people were like demonizing George Floyd after he died, people who were like mocking Paul Pelosi for being attacked, people who said nothing about the fact that even to this day that they even like spread conspiracy theories about the fact that fucking like those like Democrats in Minnesota were attacked by a person quote unquote affiliated with Tim Walz. These same people who gleefully cheer for trans students to get killed or commit suicide. And then these same guys are now sad that you're not giving them any empathy. But another reason why I want to talk about this is because the fact that for some fucking reason, the U.S. government got, I was going to say the U.S. government got involved in the assassination, but like, of course they got involved in the investigation, but I mean like, Trump openly like not only like made a big statement, he invited Charlie Kirk on Air Force Two, like his corpse. He had his corpse get carried on Air Force Two, with J.D. Vance being his pallbearer. The House of Representatives literally wanted to try and do a prayer for fucking Charlie Kirk, a thing that literally breaks the law due to the fact that it's again breaking the separation of church and state. But even to the point where somehow like European like parliaments, the European Parliament got involved and they got into an argument there over like a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk. It's like bro, like Donald Trump announced that on September 11th, the flags would be flown at half-mast for Charlie Kirk. Not 9/11, for Charlie Kirk. It has even gotten to the point where apparently someone actually has proposed a bill to allow Charlie Kirk to be lain in state. Like, again, you're making it my fucking problem. I don't believe the United States government should be giving podcasters fucking state funerals. Nor should fucking I guess technically him getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom is one thing, because like that award is literally meaningless. They just give it to fucking whoever they want to circle jerk their own best friends. But it's like, when you're at the point where you're actually trying to lay Charlie Kirk in state, it's like, really? Also, after they apparently learned that it was a white guy, magically all of their evil, hateful rhetoric against the minority groups, so magically it was like, oh, well, no. Like originally it's like, we need to make sure that the person who, like killed Charlie Kirk is like they're doing really hard, you transgenders, you better prepare for what is happening next. And then they found out it's a white guy. It's like, all of a sudden, it's like, Charlie Kirk would want us to happily pray to make sure that this boy's mental health is fine and well. It's like, if anything had been done differently, you guys could have avoided that rant. You guys could have avoided that rant if, like, the right wing literally just did anything else. Like, if they just if they mourned, or even if they did, like, fucking, like, Twitter, like, hashtag RIP Charlie, whatever, like, whatever, do whatever, your own thing, like, whatever. But when you're at the point where you're, like, literally, like, the U.S. government is going to possibly lay Charlie Kirk in state, that is a fucking insane thing that is, nobody should, why? Like, why? To get 1 point before we move on to the main topic, violence bad, violence bad, violence bad. I had a whole podcast where I said political violence was overall bad. I'm a pacifist by nature, so don't be trying to interpret anything from that. If I was presented in a scenario with two buttons, one says Charlie Kirk gets brutally murdered and the other one says Charlie Kirk lives a happy life, I would choose the happy life button, even as I know Charlie Kirk would not click that same button for me. With that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this video. I did debate possibly making that the new main topic of this video, but no, I'm not doing that. But anyways, let us talk about the upcoming Chilean presidential election. This is going to be another video of mine, which is just going to be a continuation of the other one. I don't know what the fuck my original idea for the series was going to be, because it seems like when I initially thought of the series idea, I was thinking in my brain for some reason that I wouldn't do these as often, even though it's like what was I thinking? But anyways, regardless, if you don't know, again, I made a video on the Chilean election, like the previous Chilean election. So, to get a little bit of the prelude and importance, feel free to watch that video first to get a somewhat understanding of what is the build up to this election. For those who do not want to do that and want a simple TLDR, the most recent thing I can give you is that Chile had a US-backed coup of the socialist president Salvador Allende on 9/11, 1973, with the ensuing administration of a man by the name of Augusto Pinochet turning Chile into a dictatorship that murdered a ton of people. After some civil unrest, Chile would become a democracy once more, and they celebrated that by choosing to make some interesting electoral choices for the future. They elected a Christian Democrat, then another Christian Democrat, then a progressive liberal, then a Democratic Socialist / Social Democrat, then a conservative, then the same Democratic Socialist Social Democrat, and then the same conservative afterwards. But that conservative led to more civil unrest. So Chile was very much they were in a very desperate mood. They wanted a new constitution to bring about some more changes to the Chilean economic system, and to ensure that that possible constitution would have a good land, they decided to elect a guy by the name of Gabriel Boric, a person who claimed to be a libertarian socialist who wanted to turn Chile into a post-neoliberal society. And people were very happy, and that's where we left off. So how did Boric do? Well, I gotta be frank, not the best. Boric's main political goal was to end the Pinochet constitution and bring a new one. A very impressive constitution, and I think I can link it somewhere if I can find it. But again, it was a very massive constitution. It guaranteed healthcare as a right. It guaranteed a lot of civil liberties. It guaranteed a lot of other things. It was a big, massive it was one of the most left-leaning constitutions in the history of the world. And unfortunately, it failed. I don't know why, but for some reason, when it was time for the Chilean people to actually vote on it, they just didn't like it. And then there was a little bit of a strange, weird thing where it's Boric was I'm going to try it again. But this time, the Chilean right wing somehow managed to write the constitution, which didn't ultimately do a lot different from the current Chilean constitution, but they tried it anyways, and sure enough, that constitution failed too. And by the time that constitution failed, Chile was already in the lame duck session of their term, so Boric couldn't really do much else. He could implement some other policies, but they had to work within the Chilean, neoliberal government. The idea was that he would, the constitution, it's similar to a lot of other Latin American countries. The new constitution would lead to massive electoral reform, massive reforms in the system of the countries. It happened in Venezuela, it happened in Bolivia, it happened in a lot of other countries, which is, I guess, probably one of the slight concerns that some people had, because, I guess they didn't want to be the next Venezuela. But I guess, did he actually manage to do a lot of things that were good? It's Boric isn't particularly a bad president, a bad world leader per se, but again, he came in wanting to be this massive, he basically came in wanting to be the next Allende. And to be clear, Allende didn't even do much, but Allende was super radical. He was the first Marxist to be democratically elected in Latin America. And Boric was like the two other left-leaning presidents that happened before him. Like, one was a progressive liberal who was borderline, like, almost Clinton-esque. And then the other one was a person who, like, kind of, like, teetered on social democracy versus democratic socialism. So you would think that Boric, being a self-avowed libertarian socialist who said things like, if Chile was the birth of neoliberalism, it will also be its grave, you would think he would do so much massive, drastic changes. And yet, by the time his term ended, he borderline comes off as less left-wing than Bachelet. I'm not kidding. He literally comes off as less left-wing than fucking Michelle Bachelet, who again is at worst can be identified as a social democrat. Like, at best she is a democratic socialist, but again, with social democratic tendencies. Like, the social democratic, her party and faction of the Chilean left is way more open to, like, openly aligning with the center and center right even. She should not be the person who is to the left of Boric. I even went so far as to make a comparison of Gabriel Boric to Vosh. Now, hear me out. I'm not making that comparison, but I'm saying, like, they're like sort of like the millennial libertarian socialists, but also they come off as very much like, I guess you could say, like, I'm trying to word this in somehow a nice way, but I'm trying to say, like, too lib, I guess, is the word I could use. Too liberal. And again, this is coming from a guy who was originally seen as, like, the new hope for Chile, and now he leaves office with a whopping 27% approval rating. Things are not necessarily looking good for Boric, especially with some elements of the issues going into the election. So from what I've gathered, there are 4 main issues of this election. Some of these issues, like, directly tie into each other or kind of tie into each other, but, like, let's go into them. The first issue is, of course, sadly, immigration. The Americanization of world politics continues because Chile also chooses to cry about immigration, despite the fact that immigration really isn't that bad. It's actually the lowest it's been in a long while, but that's not how xenophobia works. So naturally, people are, like, concerned about the slight number of immigrants that they see. Unfortunately, one element that does lead into some of that problem is economic stagnation, because despite the fact that, again, Boric is a socialist, he has faced there's been a little bit of an issue of a cost of living crisis in Chile, which a cost of living crisis actually to an extent was kind of like the thing that led to Boric being in charge. So it's like, not being able to solve the thing that you kind of got elected because, it's kind of a bit of a problem. One issue that Boric himself has created is a possible pension reform. See, Boric's last-ditch effort to try and get a W is finally addressing a issue that has been going on for a while, the pension crisis. Like, Chile has had a life expectancy issue. Their life expectancy has been growing, which has led to a lot of problems because of their pension issues. So Boric has pushed for a pension reform bill that would increase pensions for 2.8 million people. However, the right wing in Congress has been pushing against his bill, so there's a little bit of concern about that. The last issue that has been facing this election is crime. Chile has a homicide rate of 6 per 100,000 people, which is the lowest that it has been in Boric's term, but that's because in his term, it peaked at 6.7, so some people are a little bit concerned about the crime. And that crime, and it's actually a little bit, and either way the numbers put it, it's higher than previous administrations, so they're like, yeah, Boric, how are you going to deal with that? Especially considering some people are also shifting the blame to immigrants, so again, the issues can somehow relate to each other. Now that we got that out of the way, let us move on to the candidates in the race. There are 8 people who are vying for the Chilean presidency in the upcoming election. If you don't remember how the Chilean system works, the Chilean system, everybody runs in the first round, then top 2 vote getters, depending on the results, move on to the second round. People, of course, wildly expect that there's going to be a runoff. So, why not just mention all the people so you get a bit of an understanding of the Chilean political system? Because the Chilean political system is very interesting, especially if you go, like, bit for bit, because it's similar to a lot of other Latin American countries, particularly Brazil, because, like, there are a lot of parties, but broadly, there are only a certain number of political forces. Like, I mean, I guess Mexico is another apt comparison. Despite the fact that there are 7 parties in Mexico, there are only really 2 viable, like, I guess 2 or 3 viable forces in every single election. And in Chile, there are various levels of notoriety in regards to the factions. Like, broadly, you could probably say that there are, let me think, I'm trying to think, like, specific, like, I guess you could say there are really only 4 major real factions in Chilean politics. Like, the 2 mainstream factions of the right and left, and then the more fringe-ish factions. Like, before this election, there was, like, a center-right alliance, a center-left alliance, a left alliance, and a right-wing alliance. I guess a far-right-wing alliance. Though I guess by virtue, technically, it would be a left-wing, far-left alliance, but, you know, I guess it's just a bit more, like, it's Boric's alliance, so it's, like, again, a little bit more, like, ish closer to the middle or than far left. But you'll get what I mean. But this will even cover the people who are not really that prominent in the Chilean system. Let's just get into it. There are a couple of candidates that, again, are completely irrelevant. Nobody cares about them. And that is, the first one is Eduardo Artes, who is a perennial presidential candidate. He's ran for president in the 2 previous elections. Now, he is technically running as an independent, but that is because the party that he is running under is not legally registered with Chile. Like, it's technically legally registered, but it's not, like, registered as a viable political party. He did have a political coalition that the party was a part of, but that basically dissolved because he didn't really do that well in the previous election. And it is the Chilean Communist Party Proletarian Action, which is a Marxist-Leninist political party. This is basically like the extreme fringe left of Chile, to the point where, again, basically irrelevant. Like, it's basically like for lack of a better comparison, I give some comparisons to, like, other political parties around the world, so you guys can, like, get a bit of an understanding. Like, in a French context, you remember how in France there were, like, a broad left-wing alliances? Like, there's Mélenchon's alliance, and then there's, like you can divide the left in, like, many different ways. You can divide it in, like, the, like mainstream, like, liberal left, which is, like, the socialists and the Greens, and then you can divide it in, like, the anti-liberal left, which is, like, the Mélenchon and the communists, and then you got, like, the extreme fringes, like, Lutte au revoir. He would basically be Lutte au revoir. But in an American context, this is basically like the Party of Socialism and Liberation or the Socialist Equality Party. Like, basically, it is just that one small fringe left-wing party that really does not have that much, like, basically the biggest pejorative, like they are the ones that you think of when you hear the term tanky, for better and for worse. And I've made this comment in the last time he ran, because, again, he ran the last election, but this is just a kind of a funny story I just wanted to tell you. He had a really big controversy in, like, a while ago when he got into a conflict with Venezuelan immigrants because they were critical of Venezuela and very supportive of the president at the time, Sebastián Piñera. And Artes was, like, very much in, like he was, like, telling them off, saying, like, quote, "Go and kiss the shoes of Yankee imperialism," and called them gusanos. And one of them, was getting into an argument with one of the women who was like, "When I was in Venezuela, I was starving." And then he said, "Damn, you're skinny," because she was, like, a little chubby, so he was, like, making fun of her in, like, an ironic sense. Now, I guess to some people that would probably be like, "Oh, that's based," but, like, yeah, he's literally the guy who you virtue about, like, oh, the left wing in Chile is so mainstream, but we're the real leftists. The next candidate is Harold Mayne-Nicholls, who is the former president of the Chilean Football Federation. He is running as an independent with a campaign focused on centrism. Not much else I can really say about him. He's kind of irrelevant, similar to Artes. The candidate above him is Marco Enríquez-Ominami, who is a 4-time presidential candidate, who is also running an independent bid, but as a progressive-leaning independent. He has a party, like, he's usually tried to run under the Progressive Party, which is, like, the party that he usually tries to, like, run under, but, like, I guess he couldn't register it, so he was able to, like, push for his bid to be an independent bid. Although he does have the endorsement of a political party called the Humanist Party of Chile, which is a broadly left-wing political, like, alliance, like a broad like political like movement. It's not really that like big. It was at one point very big to the point where it was at the point where it's like it was almost seen like there was a person named Pamela Giles who was like she was originally seen as like the person who would be the president of Chile instead of Boric. That's how big at least in the sense that the party was. But ever since they split with another humanist group, it just hasn't really panned out since. The next candidate is Franco Parisi, who is a member of the People's Party, or Party of the People. It's like a broadly like center-right-ish populist party. Like it's kind of like compared to an American Party again, it'd be kind of the equivalent of the Reform Party. It's technically kind of right-ish on a lot of issues, but it comes off as less right-wing and like kind of like a broadly centrist populist party. Sort of a not left, not forward guy. What's interesting about Parisi is, like, there are a couple of things that are interesting. Like, he's a multi-time presidential candidate as well, but also the big thing about him was that due to the rise of, like, populism in Chile at the time period, he actually was, like, he was basically at the point where he was the third place finisher in the race because, again, populism was so big that it was, like, very interesting. Even more notable because of the fact that he didn't even campaign in Chile, because at the time he was running for president in the last election, he couldn't be in Chile because he was facing a warrant for his arrest for unpaid child support. He's also been accused of other sort of forms of corruption, like pension debts, sexual misconduct, and like irregularity. Like there was basically like an accusation about like, oh, well, your party's not like paying certain amounts for like stuff, so where's the money coming from and where's it going? The next candidate is Evelyn Mathai, who was the former Minister of Labor and Social Provision under Piñera. She's running under a coalition called the Great and United Chile, which is currently the dominant electoral bloc of the center-right. I guess I'll rattle off their members so that you can get an understanding about like their broader political philosophy. The Independent Democratic Union, which is her party, which is the mainstream conservative party. There's the National Renewal Party, the slightly harder right political party, the party of Piñera. There's Evopoli, a conservative liberal party. There's the Democrats, a humanist moderate conservative party. And Amarillos por Chile, which is a very strange party because apparently this party is inspired by the ideology of the center-left president Ricardo Lagos. And yet somehow they're backing the conservative candidate. Because again, like, Lagos was kind of, like, in, like, sort of, like, the Clinton-esque sphere, so it was, like, I mean, how right-wing or left-wing is he? Like, I mean, there were a couple times where he was kind of included in the pink tide, and then sometimes he was also not included in the pink tide, but, like, I guess he broadly counts, so, you know, keep that in mind. The next candidate is a candidate by the name of Johannes Kaiser, a member of the Chamber of Deputies, who is currently running under the National Libertarian Party, a far-right paleo-libertarian party that openly admires Pinochet. And one of the big things that's interesting about him is that technically this party is in an electoral alliance called the Change for Chile, but like basically what was supposed to happen was that the right wing was supposed to talk about forming a broad electoral coalition similar to the left. But what ended up happening, because like I guess I should mention a little bit about this, like there again, like as I mentioned before, there were like broad factions of like the Chilean right and the Chilean left, and like they like couldn't necessarily get along. But eventually the Chilean left was able to like coalesce around Boric to a point where even the center right, like not I guess I'm getting ahead of myself on that, but like where broadly the center left alliance and the left wing alliance were able to formally coalesce into one party. Or more rather, one coalition to form a united front under, like, the possibility of, like, someone like Boric. Not necessarily someone like Boric, but Boric can't run. Like, Boric can't run. It's a situation where, it's like, they can't, like, that's why it was, like, Bachelet's Piñera. You can't run for more than 2 terms in a row. But, like, since they all broadly aligned under Boric during his term, they're like, yeah, let's just broadly unite together under one candidate in this election, so, so we don't have any issues. And the right was like, well, possibly the only way we can beat a left-wing candidate is if we did the same. But the right-wing factions, not just in the factions of, like, the center right versus the far right, but even factions within the far right couldn't really coalesce together into one singular party, or singular coalition, mind you. The closest that they were able to do is that the National Libertarian Party and two other far right parties were able to coalesce into a parliamentary list, but otherwise they're like, we will run solo candidacies for the presidency. With like the obvious wink and nod, they'll probably endorse each other come a second round, assuming the second round doesn't involve both of them. And what's interesting about Kaiser, aside from the fact that his name is interesting, like, I mean, come on, listen to his name. He is a Chilean man named Johannes Kaiser. I mean, come on. We know what his family was doing in World War II. But the thing I have written down in my notes is that Kaiser got into a controversy in the last election where, when supporting the far-right candidate, he expressed criticism for women's suffrage because they, quote, voting against their own interests, in reference to how a lot of women voters support immigration, clearly trying to imply something about immigrants raping women. So, yeah. The next candidate is also from the far right, a man by the name of Jose Antonio Cast, a multi-time presidential candidate who was the runner-up in the 2021 election. He is not technically running with a coalition-ish. His party is under the same Change for Chile coalition with Kaiser, but again, they didn't really get to form like a broad right-wing coalition for the presidency. They were only able to do so for the parliamentary races, but Jose Cast managed to get the endorsements of two parties that have endorsed him in the past. The Republican Party, which is a party I think he himself created, and the Christian Social Party. Both of them are far-right parties with elements that link towards Pinochet, and the Pinochet connections don't necessarily end with his parties. They also go into his family, because his family is a very prominent political family in Chile, and they're also a pretty controversial family in Chile. Okay, though really too, like, he has a brother, I think, that's just kind of like a standard conservative candidate, and nobody really gives a shit about him. I think his name is Felipe, but the two people in his family that are a bit more controversial are his brother, Miguel Cast, who was one of the Chicago boys that actively worked for Pinochet's government. Okay. But the most controversial person in his family was his dad, Michael Cast, who also worked for the Pinochet government. And one pretty prominent thing was that Michael and Miguel, who, I'll actually mention this, Miguel actually was, at one point, also named Michael, because, like, I think, because Miguel Cast was, I think, the first and only member of the Cast family, aside from, like, Michael and his wife, that were born in Germany. No, wait. Yeah, they were both, like, he, like Miguel was born in Germany as well, and then when they migrated to, like, Chile, he's like, okay, I don't want you to get, like, fucking, like, cringe looks because of, our very obvious German heritage name, so you're gonna be called Miguel now, and he's like, okay, I'll call myself Miguel. But those two also very prominently worked with the Pinochet secret police to disappear a striking worker in their factory. But more prominently, the last election finally put to rest a large-standing rumor about Cast and his family. And, like I mentioned before, Michael Cast was a German national who was of military age during World War II, who fled to South America after the war. So the question became, hey, Jose, Miguel, what was your dad doing during the war? He was of military age, and he's a German national, and he mysteriously flees to Chile. I mean, Chile is one of the countries that a lot of people in that area were immigrating to during that time period. I mean, what was he doing? Jose was like, no, guys, you don't understand. No. You see, me and Michael, we would go to Germany all the time, and my dad would never have any issues when going to Germany. So clearly, nothing bad happened. Clearly, there's nothing to look for in those. There's nothing to see. But then in 2021, an investigation journalist looked into the Nazi archives, and there it was. Michael Cast's Nazi Party membership card. And more information came out, which showed one very, very strange element, and it was the fact that Michael Cast apparently at one point failed the test to get denazification documents. Like in post-war Germany, people who were like of military age during that time, who were members of the Nazi Party, they had to go through a process to be integrated back into normal society. Like they were basically like told, like you go to work and you go home. That's all you do essentially. I don't know the full ins and outs. There's probably a bit more you could probably like read about it on Wikipedia or something. But like he failed the process to get denazification documents, and one of the big things about that was that denazification documents meant that he could leave Germany. So what he did was, Michael Cast found a corrupt prosecutor and just said, burn all my documents related to my Nazi affiliation, so that way he could just get out of the country. So he basically just lied about him no longer being a Nazi to get out of the country. So, makes perfect sense why Jose Cast is so far right. But there is one more candidate in the race, and that is Jeanette Jara, the most recent Minister of Labor and Social Welfare, who, fun fact, is the one who has sort of spearheaded the pension reform bill. She is running under a coalition called the Unity for Chile Coalition, which is the governing broad left-wing coalition of the center-left coalition and the left-wing coalition. Because, like, again, like, in Chile up till recently, like, the coalition sphere was, like, there were parties that would form coalitions, and then the coalitions would form bigger coalitions, who would then form bigger coalitions. Like, let me explain how complicated this would become. Okay, so there was a party. There are four parties: Social Convergence, Democratic Revolution, Commons, and Socialist Platform. And they all formed a coalition called the Broad Front. And the Broad Front would then team up with another coalition called Chile Digno, they would form a broad coalition called I Approve Dignity, or Apruebo Dignidad. If I mispronounce that, I'm fucking stupid. And they would team up with a coalition called Democratic Socialism, which was a coalition of various left-wing, like center-left and left-wing parties, and they would form a coalition together, which would be the Unity for Chile coalition. But there's like a bit more, like as that has kind of like shifted a little bit, like parties have like shifted a little bit in sort of like rhetoric and like ideology. But like the broadest thing I can say, like to give you just the broadest sense of this party's ideology, like the ideology of this movement, it ranges from Christian democracy to communism. And you might say, why is the coalition that broad? And one of the reasons why the coalition is that broad is basically because a lot of Chilean liberals don't want to make the same mistake again. Like, this is the thing about Chilean liberals. Like, I mean, you see this in like some other Western democracies to an extent, whereas like you have like two broad like center like ish parties, but like one kind of leans slightly more left and one leans slightly more right. There are some slightly right wing parties that are like center, like the Party of the People, but you also have a lot of like people like there are a lot of liberal parties in Chile that do lean left. Even if they don't necessarily lean left ideologically, they lean left in sort of like just who they want to back ultimately. So to just give you a bit of an understanding, again, let's just rattle off on some of the parties and groups that are sort of in the coalition or like broadly supporting Jeanette Jara. First, we have the Broad Front, which is a party now. It used to be a coalition, now it's a party, which is Gabriel Boric's party. Broadly, it's a socialist party. There's the Socialist Party, which is Bachelet's party, which is Democratic Socialist / Social Democratic. There's the Communist Party, which is a communist or left-wing populist party. There's the Party of Democracy, Ricardo Lagos' party, which is a progressive Social Democrats to an extent third way party. There's the Christian Democratic Party, which is of course Christian Democrats. It's kind of the biggest outlier ideologically in the coalition. There's the Radical Party, which is a Social Democrats or Social Liberal party. There's the Liberal Party, name obviously suggests that it's liberal. There's the Social Green Regionalist Federation Party, which is a broadly environmentalist regionalist party. Then there's Humanist Action, which is a libertarian socialist humanist coalition. Now, again, for various reasons, they're the actual only coalition that actually managed to put forth a primary to actually push forth, like, some ideas in regards to how to push forward with an election. And, normally I wouldn't necessarily go over the primary that much, but I will go over a little bit about it just to give you a broad understanding. Again, just to give you a broad understanding of, like, how Chilean politics is now. Because Chilean politics used to be, like, a bit more complicated back then, but now it's, like, slightly less complicated with, like, the coalitions finally merging together into bigger, broader, like, groups. While I, of course, mentioned all those parties above, and, naturally, they will all have slightly different variations of ideology and rhetoric, but broadly, they still kind of, like, lump themselves into sort of, like, broad-ish factions within the party. And in this broad coalition, there are technically 3 factions. Like, technically, like, there's technically, like, 4-ish to an extent. I guess technically 5-ish if you're generous. But broadly, there are only, like, 3 major coalitions. Like, I guess I'll mention the 4th one just because there was, like, the regionalist ran a guy. Nobody gave a shit about him. But broadly, again, 3 major actual factions vying for control of the party, or the coalition. There's the, like, traditional center-left tendency, broadly represented by people like the Socialist Party, the Party for Democracy, the Radical Party, and the Christian Democrats kind of sometimes get involved in that fray. Sometimes they kind of, like, leave and do their own thing. But for the most part, especially in this election, they kind of, like, stuck with these guys for the time being. There's the incumbent left-wing tendency represented by the Broad Front. And then the Communist Party represents its own faction. Because the Communist Party, the Chilean Communist Party itself is pretty radical. I've already mentioned that there's, like, that other communist group with Artes, but these guys are radical, but they're not, like, too radical. I guess of the mainstream parties, the Chilean Communist Party is the most radical, but it's sort of like Morena versus, like, the PRD. It's like, no, I guess technically it's more of a PT versus the PRD, I guess. Sometimes, like, doing worldwide comparisons isn't the best, but, like, again, like, those broadly are the major tendencies of this coalition, and each of those tendencies put forth a candidate. Like, and there was infighting in the coalitions. Like, the radicals and the socialists thought about putting a candidate in the race, but then they're like, nah, we're not going to. The race was a 3-person plus race, like at least in polling. Like, there was Jaime Milei of the like, regionalist Green Party. Nobody really cared about him, but the race was really a divide between 3 people. There was Gonzalo Winter, who represented, like, the incumbent Boric faction. There was Ginette Jara, who represented the communist faction, and then there was Carolina Toja, who represented, like, the center-left faction. And they were all broadly, again, like, just kind of, like polling-wise, it was, like, very close. Like, it was Winter, Jara, and Toja basically vying for control of who was number 1, with Milei, of course, getting, like, single-digit support in the background. But the real concern really came from the fact that, like, ultimately everybody knew that Winter probably was the best candidate. Like, he wasn't even the first choice for the Broad Front to be the candidate. He was kind of like the last-ditch effort for the Broad Front to have a candidate in this race. So they're like, even if we weren't necessarily facing a situation where Boric is just super unpopular right now, we probably shouldn't have Gonzalo. So, like, and that was even, like, but they didn't take into consideration the fact that Boric doesn't have that a lot of popularity at the moment. So, basically, like, the 2 options we have are Toja and Jara. So, it's like, who of these 2 should we pick? Because one other thing that they did was, like, they both basically in order to truly show, like, they're different from Boric, they hyper-focused on their differences with Boric. And that led to some slight concern, because Toja was hyper-focusing on the fact that she was to Boric's right, while Jara was very much focused on to the fact that she was to his left. They both kind of did the thing with, like, Biden and, like, Kamala and stuff, like, where it's like, oh, well, the good things that they did were good, but, like, they also like emphasized the fact that, yeah, but, like, we can do things a little differently. But the thing that pushed Jara over the edge was basically the fact that Jara was the one who pushed that pension reform bill, and the fact that, again, it was basically ideologically, Winter was closer to her, so when the results came in, Winter didn't really do so hot in the actual election, and Jara overwhelmingly took the race, which may be vindication, because originally, Boric was even slated to be the candidate in the election. Boric was slated to be he was basically, people expected him to be this runner-up in the fucking left-wing primary. Daniel Joe, the Communist Party candidate, was actually originally not only slated to possibly win that primary, but was also polling to possibly be the front runner. They even wanted him to run this time, but he was arrested for pro-Palestinian statements, I think. So yeah, but anyways, I don't really know much of the events that happened in the race. I can't find many news stories about it. So let's just move on to polling. Polling, things are pretty basic. Most of the poll results you could probably guess just gleaming from my explanation of these candidates. Artes is, of course, in dead last. Mio and, I should mention, Marco Ominami, he's also referred to by his, initials, Mio. And Mayne-Nicholls, fights for the second to last place. Mathai, Parisi, and Kaiser are general mid-rangers, usually in that order from bottom up, but usually, they flip every once in a while because, again, they kind of have different factions. Kaiser really only relies on, the Libertarian Party to, give him his base and, possibly if you steal some votes from Caste, but Mathai basically gets to have, purely her center-right vote. And, people are encouraged in this first round to basically vote their conscience. And it's only the second round goes around where people will probably be more okay, but let's get a little serious now. There possibly could be a little bit of strategic voting, but broadly, people are more inclined to vote their, conscience in the first round. And, of course, Jara and Cast are the top two candidates. So the race is more than likely going to end up in a runoff with these two. And let's just take a look at some brief, polling, just to get, a bit of an understanding. Okay, so, the most recent poll before the first presidential debate that happened had Cast at 27%, Jara at 24%, followed by Mathai with 18%, Parisi at 10%, Kaiser at 6%, Mio at 2%, and Mayne also at 2%, and Artes at 1%. But the first poll that happened after the debate shows Cast with a 31.6%, Jar with a 25.7%, followed by Mathai with a 17.9%, then Kaiser with an 8.7%, Parisi with 7.1%, Mayne with 4%, and then Mio and Artes tied with 0.9%. Very early on in the race, Jara was basically seen as the easy winner of the first round. Not enough to avoid a runoff, mind you, but she was just generally polling the highest. But as the race has kind of continued, Cast and her have started flip-flopping at number 1, number 2. So, of course, again, everybody basically speculates that there's going to be a runoff between these two. So, and this is weird, because on the Spanish Wikipedia, they have a bunch of polls of various runoff potentials. There's Jara Parisi, Jara Mathai, Jara Cast, Jara Kaiser, Mathai Cast, Mathai Kaiser, and the weirdest ones is that they have Mio versus Mathai, Mio versus Cast, Parisi versus Mathai, and then Parisi versus Cast. No Artes. Artes is just not, they do not fucking take Artes seriously at all, mind you. And no Haynes either, so, my slight concern is, why is Mio here? I guess it's because Mio is still broadly, an ideological candidate. Hold on. Then why is not Artes there? Artes is very clearly an ideological candidate, but, let's take, the actual serious contenders, Jara Cast. It's very clearly the runoff. The runoff is going to be Jara Cast. And unfortunately, results are not looking in her favor. Literally, I'll just say it, all the polls are in Cast's favor, and I'm just going to rattle off some numbers. 45, 50, 46, 42, 43.9, 47, 47, 54.2, 45, 49, 41.1, 49, 41, 48, 50, 53.5, 47, 48, 40.8, 50, 44, 50, 47, 56.4, 37.4, 46, 45, 42, 48. I guess the numbers that are really the only thing is people are not responding and people who don't vote are like the slight concern. Like, I guess, let me see, are the polls where he does the best are the ones where people are most likely to not vote, or like say like they don't know who they'd vote for. But very clearly there's like a bit of a problem. Like, very clearly Jara's not doing the best. And like, maybe having a center-left candidate be a viable choice actually helps. Because I remember, like, there was a prominent center-left candidate that ran in the last cycle, independently from Gabriel Boric, and, well, Boric ended up winning. So maybe the fact that there isn't a center-left candidate that can really, like, siphon off the center-left vote in the first round, and then encourage them to go vote in them in the second round, maybe that's a problem that Jara needed. And it's not really like she's gonna get any help in that regard. Mio's not magically gonna go in the second round, and to be frank, she doesn't have that much. Like, I mean, like, even if we just I guess we could like look at the fucking like actual like results of the candidates in the immediate like here and see how it would be. Like, okay, so like, I know it's already gonna be a fool's errand, but let's just say, like, let's just do hypotheticals. Okay, so like Jara, let's just do a left wing one. Let's say Jara like and Mio voters. Okay, so that's 0.9. Okay, we got 26.6%. Okay, and I guess I can count Artes another 0.9 into that results, but the fact of the matter is that's irrelevant because Artes isn't going to vote for her in the second round. Like, they're not going to vote. Like, Artes is one of those types. So 27.5. All right. Now let's take a look at the results if we add all the right wing votes. Okay, so we got 31.6. Okay, we got 8.7. Okay, we got 17.9. Okay, we got 7.1. Okay, that's 65%. Like, again, it's not even taking into consideration Haynes possibly voting, like, for him, even though that's probably very likely as well. But, yeah, I mean, results-wise, Jara is, of course, the candidate 2 back, but will she win? Not impossible, but it's going to take a bit of a momentum to see if she has what it takes. Anyways, that's all I got to say on that. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to find a future video mine comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.